when we finished with the notes last time, we were talking about some sex-linked traits. And again, remember, if you have a sex-linked trait, it's on the X chromosome. If you're male, you're more likely to get it because if you get it on the X chromosome, you have it. If you're female, you have to get two X chromosomes with it, which is rare. And so very few females have it. So some of the disorders, again, it's going to be recessive on a female and it's going to basically be dominant in a male because they only get one copy of it. Color blindness. Okay, there's different types of color blindness, and you guys, when a person's colorblind, it's not like they see totally in black and white. There's certain colors they can't see, but that is an X-linked. It's on the X chromosome to be colorblind, and then if you're male and you get a Y, then you're colorblind. Okay, colorblindness, not a big deal. Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, big deal. Okay, it's a case where you're normal for a while, and then in probably around 8-9 years old, then all of a sudden your muscles start to wear away, and unfortunately you don't live very long. Hemophilia is another one. I talked about that. Hemophilia is a lot better now because they've come up with a lot of good treatments. If you're into history and you talk about the Romanovs, they did a lot of crazy things to help try to save their son who was hemophiliac. They had like 4 daughters, and then they had a son, or 3 daughters or something, and he was very sick because he was a hemophiliac. Okay. For a while there, if you were hemophiliac, you were more likely to die of AIDS than you were of hemophilia, because hemophilia, you get a lot of blood transfusions. So for a while there, they didn't, know that the AIDS virus was in the blood. Okay. So linked genes. Okay. They tend to be inherited together because they're located near each other on the same chromosome. So when we talk about independent assortment, it doesn't apply if the gene is on the same chromosome near each other. Okay. So each chromosome has hundreds of thousands of genes, except for the Y chromosome. The Y chromosome doesn't have very many. It's really tiny. So there's not a lot of room on there. Okay. So genes located on the same chromosomes that tend to be inherited together, they're linked genes. Okay. And again, they don't follow the independent assortment. If they're on the same chromosome, and the closer they are together, the more likely they are inherited together. They're linked. Okay. So Morgan, he said, all right, we'll do some other experiments to see. He wanted, he started to see some things with this linkage, and he wanted to see how that affects inheritance. So he was looking for two characteristics. And again, he was seeing how they were, the linkage of them. So what he looked at is he looked for different traits, and it took him a little while, but he found that the color and the wing size, okay, they seem to be like, if you got one characteristic, you got the other. And at first, it was like, wait a minute, no, they independently, but he found that this wasn't the case. So he figured, hey, they got to be on the same chromosome. They got to be close. So if you look here, the parental generation, we have our little gray, they called it. To me, kind of looks white, but you have a gray fruit fly. That's the wild type. In other words, that's the dominant type. Okay. And then their wings, see how that he called them vestigios. They're big. And over here, here's our double mutant. Got both recessive traits. Their bodies were black instead of gray. And look at their little teeny wings. Okay. So normal wings and vestigial, in other words, a little kind of curled up, not very good. I don't think they're very effective. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. Okay. So when these are the two that he looked at. Now, when he crossed them, now you would expect, if this is the dominant, all the offspring would be gray and have the normal wings. But that didn't happen. He was like, whoa, wait a minute. Can't be the case, because they should all have the same. And then when we cross them again, then these traits will come out. But that didn't happen. So it didn't follow the normal. Okay. So what he realized when he did his crosses is that these two characteristics are really close to each other. So you get both, or you get this characteristic. Okay. He did get some, you can see we have, this guy's got both of the dominant traits. This guy's got both recessive traits. This has their normal body type, but little feeble wings. And this guy's got the black body type, but normal wings. Okay. And when he did his numbers, he got a 1 to 1 to 1. So what he figured out was that those characteristics have to be really close to them. And you get, you're going to have those characteristics, and they're not going to separate independently like they did with like the eye color or anything like that. So he also, besides the fact that he came up with sex-linked traits, he's the one that said, if genes are near each other, you always inherit them together. Okay, so he found that body color and wing size are inherited together in very specific combinations. Okay, they don't assort independently. Okay, so the only way independent assortment works is if they're on different chromosomes, or if they're really far apart. They can be on the same chromosome, but they're far apart from each other. But if they're on the same chromosome, they're not going to independently assort, because when they create your meiosis, when you create your gametes, they're going to be together. Okay, so non-parental phenotypes. Okay, so in other words, different phenotypes than the parents had were produced. Okay, because we had the gray and the normal wings and the black and the abnormal wings, but yet we had offspring, and from the first generation. Now sometimes in the second generation they show up, but he had in the first generation black body type with normal wings and gray body type with feeble wings, and that's not normal. That didn't happen before. So what he found out then is he explored more of these genetic combinations and the production of the offspring. He found out, again, if you take both Mendel and Mendel and Morgan, and relate their findings on a chromosomal, because again, they didn't know about chromosomes. Morgan might have a little bit, but Mendel didn't have a clue. All right. So what they found out then, this independent assortment of chromosomes, is the offspring with a phenotype matching. It's going to either match one parent or the other. It's not going to be where they're all just one type. Okay. So we end up with new combinations of traits. And so he wanted to figure that out. Why do we have flies with black bodies and normal wings and gray bodies with abnormal wings? What's going on here? Okay, because that never happened before. It was always, the same as the parental, either both dominant traits or both recessive traits. Now we got one and one of each. Okay, so, and he found out it was a 50% frequency of recombination. So it was a lot. It wasn't like just a rare thing that happened once in a while. It happened a lot. So, okay, there's got to be something going on. Any two genes on different chromosomes, now that's a different characteristic, because they're going to be independent. But when they're on the same, that's how we figured out they were on the same. But okay, so when they did like Mendel's, we had the yellow as dominant, and the wrinkled was round is dominant, wrinkled is recessive, yellow is dominant, green was recessive. Okay, and so when he did his crosses, when he did his Punnett squares, he ended up getting all the different kinds, but this didn't happen until the second generation, not the first. Okay, so what they found out was, what Morgan figured out, is sometimes what happens with the chromosomes, because there's really a jumble of them when they're getting ready to divide. They kind of get jumbled up. Sometimes the chromosomes will like overlap, and then you'll actually create a different chromosome. It's called crossing over. So one piece of a chromosome from one will cross over and attach to this one, and then it'll switch parts. I think I got a better one. I probably should show you the picture, because I'm probably not describing it very well. But anyway, he proposed that the same process must occur between the genes on the same chromosome. So you can end up crossing over and getting a chromosome that's totally different than the parents it came from. Okay. And again, this mechanism they call crossing over. And again, I have a picture, I think. Yeah, this is much better. Okay, so here are the two chromosomes. There's the ones from the eggs. Okay, what happens is when they get all, because remember in meiosis, all four of them line up. These are all together. Well, sometimes a piece of this one attaches there. They switch an end. So you can see this is a new chromosome. It's got part of this information and part of, it started here, but these two crossed over and they switched some parts. So now these two chromosomes are different than the ones they came from. Okay, and you can see some more down here. Here we've got some blue ones. They stay the same, but when you get this crossing over now, what will end up happening is you'll end up with new characteristics that you're like, where the heck did that come from? Okay, so sometimes this happens with, and it's not a rare thing, it happens quite a bit. Because if you remember, those guys all get jumbled together so they can cross over. And again, these chromosomes are new. Okay, they have different characteristics. Okay, so the combination of the alleles, again, you get this variation now because they're not the same as they came from. And again, because just pieces cross over, so you get different traits crossing over. And so where before we said, okay, the eye color and the body color and the wing color are on the same one, and mom is gray and has normal wings, but she has a gene for black and non-normal. But then it end up, what happens when they cross over, now maybe you get a gene with the normal gray body type but the funny wings because they crossed over and they weren't, because they're on the same chromosome, they have a habit of doing that. Okay, so then you can get, and fertilization is random. You don't know which egg is going to get fertilized, what sperm is going to fertilize that egg. So then you can end up with new combinations because of these new chromosomes that have crossed over. Okay, and there's an abundance. They have all kinds of work now. Again, Morgan was kind of the pioneer of it, but now they see this quite a bit, where a chromosome in a offspring is different than both of the parents because it created a new one when it was formed, when it crossed over. Okay. You can now, when you start getting to the large scale chromosome changes, it's usually too much. Okay. If there's a large, like a break off or a deletion or extra material, you're going to have some problems. And a lot of times, if that happens, you have spontaneous abortions or miscarriages. Most miscarriages are because the child doesn't have the right chromosomes and won't develop. Okay, won't, it's just too much, and it won't, the child is just miscarried because it won't be able to grow. It won't be able to be able to do the things that it's supposed to do to survive. Okay, or there'll be a variety of developmental disorders. So there's all kinds of things that can happen when you mess with the chromosomes. Okay. Plants tend to be better about handling genetic issues than animals. Okay, you can actually see different chromosomal problems with plants, and they tolerate it. But animals, they can, but not like plants can. Okay, one of the things common is called non-disjunction. What'll happen is, you have 46 chromosomes, and then they split down to 23. Well, sometimes they don't split right, and you get one with 24 and one with 22. So they don't split like they should. That's called non-disjunction, when the pair of homologous chromosomes do not separate during meiosis. So you'll end up with one with an extra and one missing one. Okay. As a result, if that gamete, the one that has the extra one, gets fertilized, instead of having 46 chromosomes, you have 47. Now you think that would be okay. It's not. Okay. You don't want extra chromosomes. You don't want to be missing chromosomes. You want 46 full. And the other one, the one that only had 22, if it gets fertilized, instead of having 46 chromosomes, you have 45. And again, there's going to be problems because of it. So you need 46 full chromosomes. Okay, here's how non-disjunction occurs. You can see it. Okay, these guys didn't separate. So these guys they end up with, you can see, you're supposed to have 3. And then when they separate, see how this one has 3? I'm sorry, not looking at this one. This one has 3, this one has 1. It's supposed to be 2 and 2. Okay, so if this one gets fertilized, and it'll have an extra chromosome. If this one gets fertilized, it'll be missing a chromosome. That's non-disjunction. This is what's supposed to happen. But when this happens, and it happens more than you think, then you're going to have some issues if these are the ones that get fertilized. Okay, and they call that aneuploidy. It's the result of when the gamete gets fertilized. The offspring are going to have some sort of abnormal condition because of having either an extra chromosome or missing a chromosome. You know what? We'll quit right here and we'll talk about that next time because I'm right about the end. So again, non-disjunction is the chromosomes don't separate like they're supposed to be, and you're going to have one with an extra, one with missing one. And we'll talk about some diseases caused by that.